I drove 2 hours in a snowstorm to surprise my parents for Christmas Eve. My sister opened the door, said, "We're doing immediate family only," and slammed it shut. I deleted myself from everything. By morning, the family chat was exploding. I was standing on the frozen front porch of the house I grew up in, fingers numb, breath shaking in the icy air, staring at the door that had just been slammed in my face. The Christmas lights around the frame flickered like they were laughing at me. 2 hours in sleet, black ice all over I-80, and the only words I got were, "We're keeping it immediate family only, Morgan." Then the door clicked shut. Just like that, like I was a stranger. But it wasn't my sister Karina's voice that gutted me. It was what I saw behind her before the door closed, the warm living room, the tree, my parents drinking cocoa in matching pajamas, gifts piled high, laughter echoing like the punchline was me. Immediate family, as if I hadn't been one of them for 31 years. I didn't say anything back. My throat locked up. I just turned around, boots slipping on the ice, and walked to my car like a ghost. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the keys twice before getting the door open. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the bags in my backseat, the ones I'd spent weeks filling. A handmade candle for Mom from a woman in Ohio. A travel mug with a built-in heater for Dad because he always complained his coffee got cold. Toy trucks for Karina's twins. A custom baseball cap with her husband's business logo embroidered on it. Small things, thoughtful things. Things that said I still paid attention even when they barely remembered I existed. I should have driven home right then, swallowed the humiliation, and disappeared quietly like I always did. But something snapped inside me, something small and sharp and final. I started the car, pulled away from the curb, and didn't stop until I hit a gas station off Route 22. I sat under the buzzing fluorescent lights, head against the steering wheel, trying not to cry. Then I did something I never do. I opened my laptop. And one by one, I shut everything down. The shared grocery account I paid for, gone. The streaming services I'd been covering for years, removed. The photo storage plan for the family archive, revoked. The Wi-Fi extension at Karina's office, disconnected. The Amazon household, pulled my card from it in under 30 seconds. No warnings, no messages, no explanations. Just silence from my end. By the time I got home, the storm had turned into a sheet of ice across the city. I didn't even take off my coat, I just kept clicking through accounts until the last tie was cut. When I finally closed the laptop, the room felt huge and empty in a way that scared me. I slept horribly. When morning came, my phone was blowing up, missed calls, texts, notifications. My mom asking where I went. My dad sending some stupid cartoon meme like I was sulking. Karina saying there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Sure. I ignored all of it and made myself coffee. The apartment was freezing because I'd forgotten to turn the heat on. I didn't care. The cold felt honest. But around noon, everything changed. A knock at the door, 3 soft taps. I looked through the peephole and my stomach dropped. My parents, not Karina, not her kids, not her husband, just them. Standing there like something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. And they hadn't come empty-handed. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. I should probably explain how things got this twisted, because Christmas Eve wasn't the first time my family made me feel like an extra in my own life. It was just the first time they said it out loud. Growing up in Allentown, it was always the 4 of us, Mom, Dad, my younger sister Karina, and me. But even as kids, the lines were drawn. Karina was the golden one, the soft one, the one everyone coddled. I was the one who understood, the one who didn't need as much, the one who was told to be flexible whenever plans changed or feelings got hurt. It didn't bother me at first. Older siblings get used to stepping aside. But over time, it stopped feeling like stepping aside and more like being erased. It showed up in little things. Family photos where I was pushed to the edge so Karina could balance the shot. Birthday dinners where my favorite restaurant magically changed into hers halfway through planning. Holidays where she suddenly didn't feel well, and the whole house rotated around her while I sat in the corner with my plate. Then the bigger things. Like when I got into Pitt for college, the first acceptance letter I'd ever been proud of. Mom's first reaction wasn't excitement. It was, well, what about staying closer so Karina doesn't feel abandoned? When Karina got into a local community college the next year, They threw her a whole backyard party with catered food. I didn't even get a cake. Still, I kept trying. I came home for birthdays, bought thoughtful gifts, paid for things I wasn't asked to pay for because I knew money was tight. When I got my first full-time job in Philly, I added my parents to my phone plan, then Karina, then later her husband, Danny. It wasn't a big deal at the time. It felt like the adult thing to do, but every time I helped, the expectation got heavier. They never said thank you, not really. It was more like, of course you're doing this. You're good at taking care of us. I didn't mind being dependable until it became the only thing they saw me as. The distance really started when Karina had her twins. Suddenly everything was about them, and by extension, about her. I'd show up for birthdays and holidays, and she'd barely look at me. Mom would slip me a hug at the door, Dad would ask about work for 2 minutes, then everyone would go right back to orbiting her. The last 2 Christmases I stayed in Philly on purpose. I told them I was busy, but the truth was I didn't want to spend the holiday watching my family pretend I wasn't there. Mom acted wounded. Dad said I was overreacting. Karina didn't say anything at all. This year, though, I wanted to try again. I don't know what made me think things would be different. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was stupidly hopeful. Maybe I just wanted one moment where I wasn't the forgotten one. So I planned the surprise trip. I budgeted the gifts, wrapped everything myself, wrote notes that made my roommate cry because she said no one had ever done something that personal for her. And the whole time, I kept picturing my parents opening the door and being happy, really happy to see me. I kept imagining Mom hugging me tight. I kept imagining Dad's stunned laugh, the kind he used to make when I was little. Instead, I got a door cracked open 2 inches and a sentence that might as well have been a knife. "We're keeping it immediate family only, Morgan." And the worst part, the look in Karina's eyes. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't conflicted. She looked relieved, like she'd been waiting for the moment I finally got the message. If only I'd known then just how far she'd already gone to push me out. The knock on my apartment door wasn't even the real escalation. It was just the spark. The escalation came after, slow, quiet, and sharp as a splinter under the skin. When I opened the door and saw my parents standing there in the dim hallway of my building in South Philly, I honestly didn't know what to feel. Shock, relief, anger, some mix of all of it twisted together. Mom had a foil-covered casserole in her arms like she thought it would fix something. Dad had a sad little poinsettia and a frozen pie like he'd sprinted through the grocery store, grabbing anything festive. They stepped inside like they were entering a hospital room, careful, cautious, gentle in the way people get when they know they messed up and hope food can solve it. "Sweetheart, we didn't know," Mom kept saying. "Karina didn't tell us you were coming." Right, because I was supposed to RSVP to my own family's Christmas. I didn't call her out. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. I just let them sit, let them take in my little apartment. The mismatched thrift store furniture, the fake tree I never bothered plugging in, the wrapped gifts pushed under a blanket like they were hiding from me. The whole time, Dad kept glancing at the TV even though the sound was off. He's never been good at sitting in the quiet. He muttered, "Traffic was a mess on I-476, like we were talking about a normal visit." Mom touched her scarf, avoiding my eyes. Things softened a little as the afternoon went on. Mom put her casserole in the oven. Dad opened the wine I hadn't been planning to drink. For a minute, the apartment felt warm, almost familiar, almost safe, almost. Then came the shift. It always shows up in the smallest ways, like gravity subtly changing direction. It started when Mom carefully asked, "Did you shut off the Amazon, and the phone plan, and the grocery account?" Your sister said. Dad didn't even pretend to be subtle. "Netflix isn't working. Did you reset something on your end?" I stared at them, realizing exactly what this visit really was. They weren't here because they missed me. They weren't here because they cared about how I felt. They were here because something they depended on had broken, and I was the one who usually fixed things. Mom tried to ease into it. "Karina has a lot going on, Morgan. The twins have been sick. Danny's work hours changed. They really rely on the support." "The support I pay for?" I asked. Mom winced like I'd slapped her. The rest of the evening was just thin, fragile. They talked softly, like people walking on a frozen lake, hoping it wouldn't crack under them. They ate the casserole. They opened the gifts I'd bought them. Dad held the heated travel mug like it was a relic. Mom cried when she saw the hand-poured candle. They said all the right words, but none of it felt real. It felt like a performance, rehearsed and careful. By the time they went to sleep, Mom in the spare room, Dad on the couch, I actually started to believe maybe things could get better. Maybe I could ease back in, repair things slowly, let them earn their way back. But the next morning shattered that hope instantly. They were gone. No goodbye, no thanks, no hug at the door, just a note on the counter that said, "Let's keep moving forward," like someone handing out participation trophies. But even that wasn't the escalation. No, the escalation was the text from Karina I got 10 minutes later. A message she meant to send to someone else. A message she deleted almost instantly. A message I screenshotted before it disappeared. Morgan actually believed all that. OMG, we deserve an Oscar. She's so F***ing easy. And that was only the first lie I uncovered. The screenshot of Karina's message should have been the breaking point. Honestly, it should have been enough on its own. Her mocking me, calling me easy, acting like my parents' whole visit was some Oscar-worthy performance. But that text, that wasn't the real betrayal. It was just the door that opened to something much uglier. After I read her words out loud to Mom over the phone, slowly, clearly, without letting her interrupt, there was this heavy silence. The kind that feels like a room filling with smoke. Mom started stuttering through excuses before I even finished. She didn't mean it. You know how she jokes. You're taking it out of context. The same script I'd heard my entire life, recycled and pathetic. I hung up before she could finish, blocked her, blocked Karina, blocked Danny, wiped them right out of my phone like they were spam callers. I thought that would be the end of it. But it never ends cleanly with my family. The next morning, my phone rang. Aunt Valerie. We weren't close. She was the polished, well-dressed aunt who hosted perfect 4th of July barbecues and always signed cards with love and light. Seeing her name made my stomach tighten. When I answered, she didn't even say hello. "What happened at Christmas? Your mother is telling the whole family you had another emotional episode." Another. Like I had a history of breakdowns. Like I was some unstable storyline she dragged out whenever she needed sympathy. I felt this cold clarity wash over me. Mom hadn't just lied to cover Karina. She'd rewritten the entire situation to make me look like the problem. So I told Valerie everything. The drive, the freezing rain, the door slammed in my face. The gifts I'd brought. My parents' sudden visit. And then the message, the damning, disgusting message Karina sent. I read it slowly, word by word. Morgan actually believed all that. OMG, we deserve an Oscar. She's so F***ing easy. When I finished, Valerie didn't speak for a long moment. Then I heard her exhale sharply. "Send it to me." I did. 5 minutes later, she called back. "Morgan, this isn't the first time." My heart dropped. She told me she'd suspected for years that something was off. Whenever I wasn't at a family gathering, Mom always had a story. A reason that made me look petty, dramatic, unreliable. According to Mom, I'd stormed out of Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I never even went, I was working. I'd refused to come to Easter unless they begged. No one invited me. I'd cut contact. Suddenly last summer, they ignored me for weeks and I gave up. Story after story, all twisted to make me look unstable while Karina played the poor misunderstood victim. Valerie said she didn't know what to believe back then, but seeing the screenshot made everything click. And she wasn't the only one. Within hours, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me. "I can't believe what Karina said. We always thought something was weird. Your mom made it sound like you were the one causing drama. I'm so sorry, I should have seen it sooner." By evening, Karina's social media went dark. Deleted, deactivated, wiped. Total panic mode. And then the real twist dropped. Valerie called again, voice low, like she didn't want anyone in her house to overhear. She said, "Morgan, this wasn't just Karina." I asked what she meant. She hesitated, then said, "Your mother was forwarding your private messages to Karina for months. Screenshots, texts, things you told her in confidence. Karina's been mocking them in a group chat." A group chat. A whole group of people laughing at my hurt, my efforts, my attempts at reconnecting. Mom wasn't just covering for Karina. She'd been feeding her ammo. And suddenly, everything made sense. The weird reactions, the coldness, the way my concerns always got twisted into jokes. I wasn't just being pushed out. I was being targeted. And the scary part, I had no idea how deep it went yet. When Valerie told me about the group chat, the one where my mother and sister passed around my private messages like entertainment, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel shocked. I felt steady, cold, focused. It was like every emotion I'd been juggling for years finally dropped away, leaving only clarity. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix things. I wasn't twisting myself into knots trying to keep the peace. I wasn't apologizing for problems I didn't create. I was done being their quiet scapegoat. And if they wanted to play games, I'd give them a different kind of show. The old version of me, the version they counted on, would have tried talking, explaining, begging them to see my side. But they'd taught me exactly how much that was worth, so I started planning. First thing I did was pull out my notebook, the same one I'd used to plan Christmas gifts. The irony wasn't lost on me. Except this time, instead of writing down scarves and puzzle sets, I wrote a single word at the top of the page. Accountability. Under it, I made a list, not of revenge exactly, but of boundaries so sharp they could cut glass. One cut off every resource they relied on. Permanently. I'd already pulled the Amazon household, the phone plan access, the shared streaming services. But I remembered a few more things. They still used my Costco membership, my cloud storage plan, even my grocery delivery discount. All gone in 5 minutes. They wanted me out of the family. Great. They could pay their own bills. 2. Expose the truth without ever saying a word publicly. I wasn't going to play dirty like they did. I wasn't going to post the screenshot online or drag them in group chats. I didn't have to. Valerie and the extended family had already seen the message. I knew the story would spread through the family grapevine like gasoline through dry grass. All I needed to do was nothing. Let their own words do the damage. 3. Protect myself legally and financially. People underestimate how much a family can cost you when you're the responsible one. I froze my credit so no one could open anything in my name, changed every password, deleted old backups, pulled anything with my information off shared drives. I wasn't just cutting them off socially. I was cutting off every access point to my life. 4. Add one final quiet blow Karina wouldn't see coming. This one was personal. Karina's husband, Danny, ran a small home renovation business. The custom hat I'd bought him was sitting in the corner of my apartment, still wrapped. I wasn't giving him a gift. He didn't deserve it. But I remembered something important. I had designed his business website for free 2 years ago, and the domain and hosting, still under my name, he'd never offered to take it over. They just assumed I'd pay the yearly fee forever, so I logged in, changed the contact email, checked the renewal date, and then I set it to expire at the end of the month. Not destructive, not dramatic, just letting something lapse, like they'd done to me for years. As I crossed each item off my list, the knot in my chest loosened. This wasn't petty. This wasn't revenge for the sake of revenge. This was me reclaiming space they'd swallowed. For the first time in a long time, my life felt like it actually belonged to me. But then, just when I thought the plan was complete, when I thought I understood the full scope of what they'd done, Valerie called again. Her voice was trembling. Not scared, not pitying, angry. "Morgan," she said, "you need to hear what I just found out, and it's worse than anything you've seen." I braced myself, because the second twist, the one that made everything else look small, was about to drop. Valerie didn't usually sound rattled. She was one of those women who could host a 40-person barbecue without breaking a sweat, who arranged flowers like she was born doing it. But that night, her voice shook. "Morgan, I talked to Lynn, and she told me something your mom said a while back, something about you." My throat tightened. "Okay, what?" There was a long pause, like she had to decide whether telling me was cruel or necessary. "It was after your job promotion last year. Your mom was talking to a group of us at a family party. She said she was worried, really worried, that if you got too financially independent, you'd pull away. That you'd forget you had a family." I blinked, confused. "So she lied about me for sympathy?" "No," Valerie took a breath. "She started hinting that you had a history of," another pause. "Morgan, she told people you'd struggled with emotional instability, that you pushed her away, that Karina was the only one who could handle you." My heart dropped into my stomach. "What?" I whispered. "She said you'd had breakdowns, that you'd cut off contact before, that you couldn't manage stress and she was afraid you might snap," Valerie said. "She didn't outright call you mentally unstable, but she described you that way. Repeatedly. My mouth went dry. She didn't just twist stories. She created a whole identity for me. One where anything I did that wasn't convenient for her became proof. Then Valerie added, almost reluctantly, and Karina went along with it, every time. I felt sick. This wasn't just a family misunderstanding. This wasn't one cruel message. This wasn't a petty dynamic. This was a narrative built behind my back for years. A narrative designed to discredit me. A narrative that made them the heroes for dealing with me. And then Valerie said the thing that snapped everything in half. Your mom told people you refuse to spend holidays with the family because you get triggered. That she doesn't push too hard because she doesn't want you to spiral. Triggered. Spiral, words I have never used about myself. Words no one has ever applied to me, except in my mother's fiction. And she told us you'd stopped coming to Christmas because you didn't trust yourself to be around the kids. I felt a cold rush go through my whole body. What? Valerie's voice cracked. That's why some of the cousins stopped inviting you to birthdays. They thought they were protecting your feelings. They thought you needed space. They thought pushing you might set you off. They didn't know. I'm so sorry. It hit me all at once. Karina wasn't just pushing me out. Mom was building a case. A whole false identity to explain why I wasn't around. One that made her look compassionate and made me look fragile, unstable, unreliable. A version of me she could use to justify every exclusion, every misunderstanding, every cold shoulder. And because she was soft-spoken and sweet and worried, everyone believed her. Every room I walked into. Every gathering where people looked at me like I was breakable. Every quiet whisper that stopped when I approached. It hadn't been in my head. They weren't avoiding me because I was distant. They were avoiding me because they were told I was dangerous to myself. All because my existence was easier for them when I wasn't there. The realization wasn't painful. It wasn't even shocking. It was clarifying, like someone finally turned on the light in a room I'd been stumbling through for years. But this twist wasn't even the worst part. Because when Valerie told me why my mother did it, why she'd worked so hard to shape me into the unstable one, I swear the air left my lungs. The truth wasn't protective. It wasn't sympathetic. It wasn't love twisted the wrong way. It was cold, calculated, and horrifying. Valerie didn't soften her voice when she told me the truth. She didn't try to cushion it or ease me into it. She just said it outright, like ripping off a bandage that had been hiding something rotten underneath. Morgan, your mother didn't want you close because she didn't want you to replace her. I froze. Replace her? What does that even mean? It means, Valerie said slowly, your mother was afraid you'd become the one everyone leaned on instead of her. She was terrified of losing her place. My whole body went still. She told Lynn once that you were too capable, too independent, too strong. You never needed anything from her, so she convinced herself you might try to take her spot in the family dynamic. Especially after Karina had the twins. I felt the floor tilt. Valerie continued, voice cracking with disgust. She said she was scared you'd become the center of the family. That people would start going to you for advice, help, support, and stop going to her. She said you had, quote, a way of making people feel safe, and it made her anxious. Safe. That was the word she used against me. I sucked in a shaking breath. She didn't want to compete with you, Valerie said, so she eliminated the competition. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. All those years I thought I was drifting away from them on accident. All those times I thought I'd misunderstood their distance. All the moments I felt like a ghost in my own home. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't miscommunication. It wasn't a sad accident. It was a plan to isolate me, to diminish me, to make sure no one ever saw me as someone central, important, reliable, equal. A plan to keep me small. And Karina, she didn't just go along with it, she thrived in it. Valerie kept going, each sentence hitting harder than the last. You replacing her in the family structure was her biggest fear, Morgan, especially because Karina's always needed your mother to stay relevant. Without your mom pushing her forward, Karina would struggle. And your mom knew that. She knew she had to protect Karina's place. Protect her place. The pieces lined up, all of them, perfectly. My mother wasn't afraid I'd pull away. She was afraid everyone else would pull toward me. She wanted to be the emotional center, the one people confided in, the one everyone turned to when things went wrong. She wanted the sympathy, the attention, the gentle sighs of, you have so much on your plate. And if I showed up, stable, capable, willing, present, her grip would loosen. So she twisted me into the opposite. The unstable one, the distant one, the fragile one, the one no one should pressure or rely on. And every time I stayed quiet, every time I backed down, every time I swallowed hurt instead of confronting it, she used it as proof she was right. I wasn't excluded because they didn't notice me. I was excluded because my mother made sure they didn't. And the scariest part? This wasn't a sudden break. This wasn't one bad Christmas. This was years of careful, strategic emotional sabotage. That was her reason. Her cold, horrifying, calculated reason. She couldn't stand the thought of me being loved in a way that overshadowed her. I didn't rush my revenge. I didn't lash out. I didn't confront them or send dramatic messages or expose them online. That would have made me look exactly like the unstable caricature my mother had spent years painting. No, my revenge was quiet, measured, deliberate, and it started with the simplest move. I disappeared from their ecosystem completely. One morning in early January, I woke up and felt something shift inside me, a kind of resolve that didn't burn but hummed. I made coffee, I sat at my table, and I began closing the world they'd built on my back. First, I canceled everything tied to my accounts. The grocery delivery pass, the shared cloud storage, the password manager access Mom and Karina had been using, the Costco membership, even the old shared Google Calendar that had all the birthdays and holiday reminders. Gone, all of it. Then I opened the hosting dashboard for Danny's company website. I didn't disable the site. I didn't break anything. I simply transferred ownership to him and disabled auto-renewal. A note popped up. This site will go offline January 31 unless the new owner completes payment. Perfect. Next, I sent one final email, nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, to my parents and Karina. Please do not contact me again. I am no longer available for this relationship. Morgan, then I blocked their emails. I didn't check for replies. I didn't wait for reactions. I didn't give them the performance they wanted. The real revenge wasn't cutting them off. The real revenge was forcing them to live with the real version of events, the version they could no longer twist or hide. And the fallout came fast. Aunt Lynn messaged Valerie saying Karina was in full meltdown mode. Apparently people were asking questions Karina couldn't answer. She couldn't spin it. She couldn't blame it on miscommunication. She couldn't make herself the victim, not when the screenshot existed, not when the extended family now knew Mom had been poisoning the well for years, not when they realized they'd been manipulated. And then came the part that almost made me laugh. Mom tried to host a family healing dinner. Only 3 people showed up. People she used to brag about keeping close suddenly had excuses, conflicts, or simply didn't respond. Because once the light hits the truth, the shadows can't hide anymore. Danny, meanwhile, sent a frantic message through a mutual acquaintance at the end of the month, asking why his business website had gone down. I didn't respond. Not my problem. Not my bill. Not my burden. And Karina, she stayed silent. Her social media remained wiped. A digital ghost of her own making. She'd built an identity around being the favored one, the protected one, the victim. But without the manufactured stories, without my mother shielding her, without a family willing to ignore the truth, she had nothing to stand on. My mother's version of me had finally collapsed because it couldn't survive outside her imagination. The real me, the steady one, the capable one, the one who doesn't need to perform, finally stepped into the open. And the best part, the revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't destructive. It wasn't cruel. It was freedom. I spent the last weekend of January sitting alone in my apartment, drinking tea, watching the soft winter light spill across the floor. No buzzing phone. No obligations. No guilt. No manipulation. Just quiet, clean, honest quiet. The version of me they tried to bury was finally gone. And the version of me they were afraid of, she finally woke up. My last thought that night was simple. They didn't lose me. They let me go.